It's a snow day here in Ontario and much of the East Coast, so what better way to spend it than grabbing a warm drink and talking some Toronto FC with us here on Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. My name is Mitchell Tierney, editor at WTR, and boy, we have another jam-packed show for you guys this week. We'll be talking some updates on where and when Toronto FC might play this upcoming season, their designated player search, and plenty more. Just a bit here, Laura Armstrong of the Toronto Star will join the show to discuss the Canadian women's national team ahead of the She Believes Cup, as well as, I'm sure, some Toronto FC and plenty more. Michael, Jeff, how you guys doing this week? Mike, you watch any hockey over the last couple of days? I say.
All right. Come on, less than a minute in, and you already want to go there.
I mean, I want to. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to completely change the subject and just open with why does everything in the world have to be so hard and set my OCD off. I started getting into The Expanse, and I figured I'd treat myself to the box set of the books, and then they arrived. Why are they bigger than textbooks I owned in film school? I mean, this is not a pocket-sized novel. I'm afraid to open them because I know that like standard paperbacks exist somewhere. So, I tried to do a nice thing for myself, and there you go.
Well, we've got some hockey talk. We've got some show and tell with Jeff, but let's get into the actual headlines this week. Let's start with news of the season itself, which has been delayed, perhaps unsurprisingly, after the CBA negotiations until April 17th. Now, Toronto FC, actually, they're going to be in camp tomorrow. They're starting things out early because we anticipate Canadian Championship in March. Are you guys' thoughts on any of this? I mean, it's not really surprising the season's delayed, but, it looks like we'll have games sooner rather than later, which obviously massive positive.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that TFC have been prepping for this all along. I mean, if any of you guys follow any of their players on Instagram or whatnot, you'll see that they've been in Toronto for a while. And I think this is something they were sort of preparing for, is that early start to the year. So I'm assuming they'll all be quarantined. They'll all be ready to go on the 17th there. And hey, we have something to look forward to. But what I'm really puzzled about is how come we don't have a date announced? What's the delay in that by now? Should it not be finalized? Are they still trying to figure things out? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
There's a lot to work around. I mean, you've got Olympic qualifying. You've got Canadian men's national team as well for the World Cup. And what's the third thing, Jeff?
Well, the fourth thing is where are they playing it?
Are the rumors that too,
about Raymond James Stadium in sunny Tampa, Florida? Because if so, don't they have to set up there, and then doesn't it then become the onus then fall to Hamilton's Forge FC to get over there within quarantine times?
Well, preseason's taking place in Toronto. So TFC are going to be training at BMO training grounds for the foreseeable future, because the MLS season obviously doesn't start until April there. So, I mean, it does give them some time to work out a solution here within Canada potentially, and that's likely because it is the Canadian Championship, and I'd be very surprised if it is played elsewhere aside from Canada. So, yeah, I mean, I just want to hear a date by now, because I think we're getting close to things, and the CONCACAF draw has already been done. We know when that's starting, and we know which time frame the game will be. It'll be between now and April 6th, but when's that date? Oh, lost that there.
So our friends of the vocal minority discussed, the possibility of the game not even being played at all. And they brought up a coin toss, a coin flip. They also brought up a pan-Hamilton, pan-QEW team, like a little bit Forge, a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. Would you be happy with a coin flip to decide who goes?
No. I don't think anyone would.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance of that. Although, hey, coin toss is a great part of our Canadian soccer heritage. Canada, of course, qualifying for the knockout rounds of the Gold Cup in 2000 through a coin toss, went up and won that tournament. So who knows if there's any Canadian team that's going to win the CONCACAF Champions League, probably going to qualify through a coin toss.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is a harrowing point. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, Raymond James Stadium, Tampa, Florida, home of the former MLS side. What were they? The Mutiny, Tampa Bay Mutiny,
and home of the reigning Super Bowl champions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know, Mitch. Have you heard anything further on those lines, or any further developments, or is that the latest that we got there?
What I will say, I mean, I think they are looking at multiple places this season. I don't think they've locked in on Tampa Bay. The place that I have heard is somewhere else near there, not Tampa. So I think they are looking at multiple possibilities. Like I've said before, yeah, I'd be surprised if they end up back in Hartford or in the North. I think it just makes more sense at this point for a lot of reasons. Obviously, it's a little bit riskier from a COVID standpoint, but for a lot of reasons, I think it makes more sense to camp in Florida. And it seems to be going well for the Raptors who are down there. We'll probably expect the Jays to be somewhere close in Dunedin as well for this next season, if reports are to be believed. So, we could have all the Toronto teams down there next year.
And you kind of touched on it last week, is that the players, they weren't happy really in East Hartford, even though it was for 2 months. I guess there's not really, I mean, it's East Hartford, Connecticut, and they tried to, make it as appealing make it sound as appealing as they could. But end of the day, it is East Hartford, Connecticut. And, with weather and everything going on there, Bill Manning told the Toronto Sun, I think this week, that, again, the players weren't really the happiest there. And that's why they're kind of looking at other locations. And I think, the ultimate reason I think he cited was because of weather conditions in the area, but he is looking at other areas in the Northeast and considering that option. But I'd be surprised if TFC don't start somewhere warmer, just because why not? If you have the option, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I understand weather for, the quality of training and playing your games. But I do remember the MLS's back tournament where we were all complaining about the magma hot temperatures in Orlando. So, I when people are like, well, the weather was crap, but we're in a hotel. There was nothing to do in the town, but we're quarantined in a hotel the whole time. It's like you wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway. So,
yeah,
they have John's there too. So
but being like even from a weather standpoint, like. I don't know, how much nicer it can be sometimes if it's sunny out and, there's nice weather versus...
You wake up, you look outside your window and you see Florida and the hot sun, or you wake up, you look outside your window and you see buildings, clouds, and East Hartford, Connecticut. I mean, which one would you rather choose? That's why people go vacation down there now.
Yeah, but I think that would be doubly depressing. It's like, oh, look at how nice it is outside where I can't go ever. So I don't know.
They got to do stuff. We saw the Top Gun adjacent scene of Piatti and Pozuelo playing some foot, whatever it is, foot table tennis.
Table tennis. I think that was a deep fake, guys. Next time we get Jerome on here, we're gonna get the real scoop.
But yeah, no, I think it does make more sense to be down there, and we'll obviously see where it goes from there. One thing that is interesting to me though is with their designated player search, and we'll move on to this. Like now that the season's delayed and things are, if you can't get your right guy, if you don't think that you're going to get that guy this window, do you push for the summer now? Because how many games is he going to miss if he doesn't come in right away? And are you too concerned about that in the sense that, we've seen teams bring in designated players before in the summer window and it's worked well. Seattle Sounders always seem to do it, and it gives them that second half boost. I don't know. I still think they're probably going to bring them in the winter, but I don't think we should, be too concerned if they can't get their player then, because at some point there are some benefits to bringing them in the summer.
Yeah. I think, everything I've read about Bore suggests that he's not going anywhere. The rumor that I really liked was Junior Hoylett. I mean, I've been screaming from the mountaintops about bringing Junior home to play for TFC for a long time. His contract's almost up. Let's do it. I'll buy a shirt the day it's announced.
That would be a good signing. I wouldn't be mad at a Junior Hoylett sign, although I'm not sure if that is the guy right now. If we can talk a little bit about Bore, and his contract is up in the summer, as Mitch is sort of alluding to there, and that perhaps it'll be easier to sign someone like him whose contract is up in the summer, as opposed to paying that transfer fee in the year, or convincing the team to let him go for free. Also, you get, in terms of salary cap, which obviously we know TFC is tight against, instead of having it charged as the max contract you have, which is like around 500, 600,000, it's half of that if you bring them in the summer transfer window. So it's 300,000 on the salary cap. Therefore, you have an extra 300,000 or whatever to play with, and add to your team for this year. Now, it depends on the type of player that they're getting. If they're trying to get someone long term for their future, it doesn't matter if they bring him in now or they bring him in the summer. They want to bring him in, right? So obviously we'd like to have them sooner, but if you're going to save 10 million hypothetically and bring them for free in the summer, I think we can wait the extra 2-3 months for a player that's going to be here hopefully for the next 5, 7, 8 years, right? Again, I don't know. I don't want to say it's not Santos Bore, however you pronounce it.
He plays for River Plata.
Yeah. Hopefully we do get to learn the pronunciation of his name, because I think he would be an exciting signing for Toronto FC. But I don't think the TFC have done a really good job at sort of keeping their mouth shut here and keeping things in tight, and nothing really has gotten out so far, except for KJ letting us know on his Instagram live that this will be a player that TFC fans are familiar with. It won't be a stranger to TFC fans. So that's positive news, because I think a designated player has to sell jerseys, and they all have to be able to contribute on the field. And if it's someone that a TFC fan is familiar with, I'm betting that's probably someone who will sell jerseys and hopefully be able to, compete on the field. So exciting times for TFC fans, because they have a couple of open roster spots, and hey, they got some room.
So could you sell Junior Hoylett as a designated player, though? Because as much as I really like Junior Hoylett, and I think he's a fantastic player, again, you just got rid of Pablo Piatti, who I think is at least a somewhat similar caliber of player to Junior Hoylett, and you have the proof of concept with Piatti. He works in the team. Obviously, he didn't have the offensive upside everyone was hoping, and I think Junior Hoylett's at least slightly better in that category. But in terms of caliber of player, Hoylett, Piatti, pretty similar.
Agreed.
Don't care. It's Junior Hoylett. I don't care. They can always tune into this show to watch me sing his praises, and then I'll help sell shirts. So, is Bore?
I think he's
Bore. We're gonna have to invest in Accent Aigu name sets all of a sudden. So I don't know if Bore is gonna sell shirts either. We're not getting messy, right?
Year, but maybe a second, third year. He'll be here for a while. The thing about Junior Hoylett,
then I apply the same thing to Hoylett. He may not sell shirts in the first year, but watch him go, and then
he'll sell.
Yeah, I think
at least one. At least one.
Probably two.
That's a good point. How old is Junior Hoylett? Like 30?
31, I think.
31.
Yeah,
32?
I want to say 31. Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, they're bringing a player that's over 30. I think he would
30 exactly.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
He'd fit in well with in MLS in general. I think he'd be a good goal scorer. He'd bring what TFC needs. But that being said, I think he's open to coming to Toronto. He's said it in the past that he wants to one day play for Toronto FC. And if his contract's going to be expiring one day, I don't think that you need to rush that move. I think that move will come eventually, and perhaps it won't be. You won't have to use up that designated player spot. We do have this new under 22 initiative, which is super exciting. And, TFC are in a position where they can definitely take advantage of this. So perhaps Junior Hoylett then does become, a viable option as a designated player. Hey, either way, the speculation is so much fun because, something's going to happen. TFC are going to get their new star in Toronto, and it's an exciting time for Toronto FC fans.
Absolutely.
Certainly is. Well, it's an exciting time for the show because it seems like Laura Armstrong is here. So we'll bring her on now. A number of things to talk about, as we said, with the She Believes Cup coming up, as well as Toronto FC's season set to get underway tomorrow in terms of training camp. Laura, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
Good, Laura. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're a big fan here. So
thanks for having me. I always love a little bit of time to talk Canada women and TFC.
Oh yeah. And we're hoping to get some Blue Jays questions in there too.
Oh
no, I'm just kidding.
Mike, I have a Blue Jays question. My God.
Well, anyway, let's
do it.
Yeah, let's start with the Canadian women's national team. A very interesting first couple weeks of training camp in the sense that a lot of players aren't going to be there. Revealed that Christine Sinclair, Matheson, McLeod, Bianca St. George missed due to injury. And then, of course, all the French players, Buchanan, Lawrence, and Heidema won't be there due to restrictions and their clubs kind of saying no. So, does that kind of change the tone of the camp now? Because you've probably got 3 to 4 starters who aren't there. It's got to change Priestman's plans at least a little bit in terms of what she was hoping to accomplish here.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. I mean, we just talked to her. She just got off a conference call like a minute ago, and she was saying that certainly they're still going out there to win, right? And I think that if you're a top 10 team in the world, you can't say just because we've lost a couple of players, we're not going to go out there to win. But of course, it makes for more sort of opportunity and certainly more adversity for this team than maybe it would have been even 2 weeks ago when we first came into camp. I think that it's really exciting. Like, I think that it's an opportunity for. And I don't necessarily know, like, really exciting sounds weird because it sounds like it's going to be wholly positive, and it's not going to be wholly positive. But I think that it's really exciting from an outsider's perspective to get this team to start really transitioning. We've been talking for years and years about this team transitioning, and I'm certainly not calling Christine Sinclair's retirement because Lady can play as long as she wants in my books. But I think that, we do have to prepare for a time when the players that in the Sophie Schmidts, the Desiree Scotts, the Diana Mathesons, the Christine Sinclairs, the Erin McLeods are no longer around, right? And at some point, we knew we were going to start seeing these injuries. We knew we were going to start seeing players perhaps not coming into the national team fold. And this is kind of the first tournament where we see it. So there's going to be opportunity for certain players to step up. And then there's also going to be, holes that there exist in the starting 11 or the starting 14 or the starting 23 or the 20, this group of 23, and it gives Bev Priestman an opportunity to sort of really see what those holes are and try and start figuring out how she can fix them.
No, that's some really good points. That's something we've been talking about really on this show, and even last week I was asking Oliver Platt, who was on here, and I was asking some of the names that he would expect to sort of step up in other than Christine Sinclair or some of the other big echelon names. So Laura, I'll ask you the same question. Aside from, some of the people who are going to be missing, who are some of those people that could step up for Canada?
Yeah, I think one of the names that, like, on that list of players that you're going to miss, I think Bianca St. George would have been a very interesting player to see a little bit more of. Unfortunately, she's injured, so she's somebody that I'm going to be looking for in the future. But I do think that, and I think that also Jordan Heidema, like, I'm just itching to see her come back from PSG because I think that she finally is going to be in a place where she really can sort of start stepping into this Christine Sinclair role. So we're going to miss seeing her, I think, as fans a lot. But I do think that I'm looking forward to actually seeing Jordan Listro play in center of midfield. I think she brings a lot of grit to that position. And I think that, you've got Desiree Scott, who has held that destroyer role for a long time, but she's going to be one of those players who moves sort of out of this fold in the next 4 years, let's say. Right. And I think that you need somebody who's going to sort of come in and take on that role because Canada needs that grit. I think that's really important. Evelyn Vienne, I think I'm very excited to see her come in. And I think that one of the things that we've seen with this Canadian team, even though we talk so much about Christine Sinclair and the international goal scoring record, they've struggled to score goals, right? Mm-hmm. They really have struggled to score goals. So I think that it's important to get somebody like her into the fold and to really see sort of what she's able to bring. I think the younger players like the Sarah Stratigakises, they're interesting to me. They're maybe not like right now players. They're not players that I'm expecting to see on the Olympic roster, but you're sort of going to get a taste of them right now. It's an interesting generation though, right? Like they're not like necessarily, in my view, the Kadisha Buchanans and the Ashley Lawrences who are going to come in, basically as teenagers, and they're going to be with this team forever. I think there's still going to be a lot of battles to get into these rosters. I think you're going to see a very different Olympic roster come the summer if the Olympics go ahead. But I definitely think that you're sort of getting a taste here, and at least you'll know what's coming down the pipeline, which I think is important.
Absolutely. Mitch hates when I do this, but I'm going to ask a double question because I'm always curious about origin stories. So, just a bit of your origin story and what your biggest influences are, and then to follow it up, what's the most striking difference between covering baseball and soccer? Oh, and also as a precursor, I wore this for you because I know
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's really nice. Yeah.
But we're not talking about William at all. It's not happening.
I can't. I'm too close. Makes me feel sad.
Cool. So yeah, my questions, the double ones.
Yeah. So my origin story. Oh my God. This is. What I will say is that I was born to a British father, so I don't think that I had a choice, frankly. Particularly in the Arsenal realm, that was always something that we always, I think it was ingrained in me. Like he tried to name me Laura Arsenal Armstrong. Like that's so he did try. My mom tried to name real hard, but it's like it feels like it's just part of you, right? And I think that we were just always really involved in the culture. I was actually on a podcast a couple of weeks ago that's called Soccer Snobs out of Ottawa. And there were guys who played at the club that my dad played at when we were kids, and he still plays. And I just it just kind of felt like it was part of the community that you grew up, right? They were all sort of British expats, and we went to the bars on Friday nights, like kids just racing around the soccer field and then racing around the bar, and you just learned sort of a language in a community. And I think that that's what really made me want to be a journalist, as well as watching Craig Forrest and Jerry Jobson like on the weekends every Saturday morning. That was so important to be a part of. So it was incredible to be able to do this job. I feel very, very lucky, particularly when I get to report on soccer, because it's something that's so meaningful to me personally. The difference between covering soccer and baseball is pretty significant, though.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's totally different. And covering baseball for the last 4 years, I think this will be my 5th season on the Jays beat. It's a grind. Like baseball is such a grind, right? You listen to the soccer players complaining about playing 30 minutes, and I totally get it. It's a completely different sport, or 38 games. I totally get it. It's a completely different sport, but you're that's like a month in baseball. That's not wrong. So it's definitely different. It's really interesting to be able to learn a whole new sport that I didn't know a lot about before I started covering it. And I think that the one thing that links every sport, especially as a reporter, is that community that does exist. Like there's a soccer community, there's a baseball community, and they all have their sort of specific differences. But I think that, it's just that links sport. And once you're able to sort of get to the heart of sport, which is just the way that it can bring people together, you can find that no matter which game's being played.
It's weird. I'm the opposite of that. My dad was the baseball guy. I mean, he needed an extra seat for all of his accoutrements and the program and the headphones, so he could listen to the radio broadcast to get the play-by-play at the Sky Dome. So yeah, I came into soccer, but baseball is what I grew up with
Interesting.
My dad, so.
I mean, yeah. I do kind of wish that I had grown up with baseball, and if I ever have children, they will grow up with baseball, because there's something lovely about going to the ballpark, and just because it's such a culture here in North America. I kind of feel like on soccer, even though there's so many people who love the game, you love the game overseas in a lot of cases, or whatever the case may be. Whereas baseball is very inherent to North America. And I think that that's something that's really cool. And I don't know, I just feel like I would, if I ever go watch a baseball game now for fun, which happens maybe once or twice a year, because I think it's cool to go drink beer at your job. I will score the game and stuff, because I just love that I know how to do that, which is it's a wild thing I never would have known when I was a kid, because I just didn't grow up with that kind of thing.
Awesome.
That makes a lot of sense. No, but really good answers there. That was some pretty vague questions.
I like
You did
to
a really good job. Yeah. But sort of like shifting back to the She Believes Cup there.
Yeah.
Bev Priestman, it's going to be her debut. Are you expecting a sort of shift in philosophy here as she kind of takes the helm, or are we expecting to sort of go on that same trajectory that Canada Soccer was, which the Canadian Women's National Team, sorry, which at the time, honestly, they were in flux because they weren't getting the results that they needed. Do you think that this is going to be sort of refreshing and change the direction here, or what do you expect here, Laura?
Yeah, I like Bev. I think that it's great that she's back. I think I've always liked her. I think she's always been a really, really intelligent speaker. And I think that maybe you did see some shift, I think, from like the John Herdman era to the Kenneth Heiner-Muller era. And I actually was surprised at how well that went over because of how shocked everybody was and how shocked all the players were when John Herdman just suddenly announced he was switching. I think that you could feel the devastation that the players were feeling when they learned that. And then Kenneth Heiner-Muller came in, and I think it was a very difficult position for him to come in. And I think he really earned his stripes as kind of a player's coach. Like, even, Christine Sinclair, she would rave about him. And I think that, given the significant relationship that she had with John Herdman, I think that was really, really important. Bev Priestman, I think that it's not so emotional this time around, right? And I think that because Bev Priestman knows all of the players, she's going to be able to integrate pretty well and pretty quickly with this team. But one thing that I would say is that she's not the Bev Priestman, I don't think, that we saw under John Herdman, right? She's gone and she's done things since then. She's learned things. And I think very importantly, she's learned things in England, which is a really, really fascinating to me area of women's football right now. So I think that, she's had the chance to go and not only, see the inner workings of another national team, which I think is really important. She's also gone to see, a lot of games, and she's probably had the opportunity to chat with people throughout the game in England. And I think that that's huge, and bringing that back is going to be helpful because she not only, in my opinion, has the job of trying to get this team to the next level, which is the biggest jump to make from this sort of, 5 to 10 team to 1 to 5 team. Mm-hmm. She also has to transition. She's going to have to transition this group. And I think that that's hugely a part of her role. And I think that she's going to have to really look to her sort of days in the pipeline to make sure that happens, which means she's going to have to juggle a lot of balls at the same time. So I think that that's what I like about her. It's not necessarily what I think she can do for the national team. I don't think we're going to see a huge change in philosophy or whatever the case may be. I think that you're hearing a lot of the same narrative that you've heard from the last two coaches, and why not? Because it's worked to a certain extent. But I think that the added thing with Bev Priestman is going to be that she is going to need to be involved in all of the pipeline that's working towards this team and making sure that there are players to replace the players when they depart eventually.
Yeah, no, really well said.
Nice. I was going to ask about pandemic stuff, but I think I'm going to ask you about TFC because we haven't talked about TFC yet. Speaking of coaching changes and looking forward, what are your thoughts on what's happening in TFC land over the last couple of months?
Wild. Still, I don't know. It feels as a TFC watcher really in the last year, because I haven't covered the team as much as I normally would have because of the pandemic. It's so weird that they're not Greg Vanney's Toronto FC anymore. I think that for me, this is really Bill Manning's team, and the buck stops with Bill Manning now. I wrote about it, I think, around the time that Vanney left, that or around this time, I guess they signed Chris Armas. Before it was very much still a club that was benefiting from the behind-the-scenes work that Tim Lewicki, Tim Bezbachenko, Greg Vanney did, back when they started this whole revamping of the club. And it's not to say that Bill Manning hasn't helped, because he certainly has in the last 5 years. But now he's got Ali Curtis, who is his guy. He's got Chris Armas, who is his guy. And I think that, the buck really stops with him and how he's going to transition this team, because they've said that they don't want to go into a rebuild, right? And so far they've done a good job of that. But you want to see how that continues. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see Chris Armas. I think that it was a risky decision on the part of Toronto FC. I think that, there are there are certainly questions about his record and questions about what he's done so far to deserve such a big job in Toronto. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see if he can live up. I mean, I'm not prepared to say no, because we all scratched our heads when Greg Vanney came in, right? And then he went on to be the best in the league. But I certainly think that that's going to be something that, reflects on Bill Manning. Did you bring in the right guy if things go in a different direction? So I think it's, again, one of the most interesting seasons in Toronto FC, recent years, right? Because we've just gotten used to the same coach, the same GM, the same group of guys, and now you've almost got a completely different core that you're expecting the same things out of. And how often do you sort of strike gold like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And you kind of touched on there. That's sort of a different core. But what about those Josie Altidore rumors that came up, 2 weeks ago of him saying that, or not him saying, Jim Carlisle reporting that Josie Altidore wants to move away from Toronto FC after butting heads with Ali Curtis. What did you make of those rumors, Laura? And do you think Josie does want out of TFC, or is that sort of just smoke there?
Well, first of all, I was shocked that Greg Berhalter was the one commenting on it and sort of started stoking the fire, because I have never seen a national team head coach, or you certainly rarely see a national team head coach being like, yeah, this guy wants a transfer. I was like, wait, what? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
It's one of those press conferences that if you weren't paying attention for those seconds, then you really messed up, because something actually interesting just happened. So I don't know. Listen, I think that Josie has had a hard couple of years. I certainly think that, he's made it clear he thought that at one point, Michael Bradley's injury was mishandled. And I think that maybe, there are some frustrations there in terms of the injuries that he has had. I still think that he is a very capable player. And I also think that he loves Toronto. So I don't know. I think that he is the kind of guy who could weather the storm in Toronto, because he cares so deeply about the city. He cares so deeply about the fan base. And I just think that he still has a lot to give this organization. I don't think that he gets enough credit really for what he's done. I think that if you look back at some of the most momentous moments in Toronto FC history in the last 5 years, Josie Altidore is at the center of a lot of them, but you really see all of the stories about, Michael Bradley, about Sebastian Giovinco, about Alejandro Pozuelo, about Victor Vasquez, right? And I don't necessarily know that Josie gets enough credit for what he's done for this team. And I think
why do you think that is? Yeah.
I think he's not as, he doesn't speak as much, frankly. Michael Bradley will come out and talk every couple of days, and Josie Altidore doesn't necessarily speak as much. I don't know why that is, but I just think that there are other guys who will come out and maybe be a little bit more have their face out there a little bit more. And certainly because of the injury, right? Hugely because of the injuries. But every time that he's been healthy, he's come out and he's produced in really important moments. You remember some of the early Toronto FC playoff days where Sebastian Giovinco wasn't scoring, and everybody was complaining about why Sebastian Giovinco was not scoring in the playoffs. Well, guess who was scoring? Josie Altidore. Right? So I just think that there's stuff left in him. I think that it would be hugely bad for the club if this went poorly, if this relationship seemed to sour, and it soured publicly, because I don't think that's what Josie Altidore deserves, and I don't think that the fan base would respond well to that. So I certainly think that they need to find a way to patch that up and try and get something out of him before his deal does end. I mean, certainly they're going to have to move on from him eventually. He's getting older, but he's just, for me, he's a pillar. He's one of the pillars of this club. And I think that you have to do whatever you can to try and get him back on the field, get him healthy. And once you do that, I really do think that he's the kind of guy who's going to deliver for this team, because he has a track record of delivering for this team.
Yeah, even this past year.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, even this past year, right? We aren't talking about the season starting, training camp starting tomorrow if Josie doesn't score that goal against Montreal and give them that spot in the Canadian Championship. So, even this past year, he's still, even in his toughest year with Toronto FC, he still
Be
that
quiet
one big
now.
moment. Yeah.
2020 was a wash too, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
anybody on 2020. Like
That's
Josie
true.
Alter is a dad. He has a kid. Like there's all these things that like you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know, what was happening with his family life, whatever. And I think that you have to give every single athlete who competed in 2020 that amount of grace, because it was not easy. It wasn't easy for us as people. Like it's certainly not easy for athletes who are being expected to move or relocate their entire lives, right? So I don't think that we can judge anybody based on what happened in 2020. It sucks for the players who are sort of coming towards the end of their contracts or the end of their careers. But I certainly think that we have to I don't know.
He gets passed.
I'm still going to judge Willian on 2020. As long as we're clear, I'm still judging Willian on 2020.
Sure,
and I wasn't going to talk about him, but
well, speaking of relocating their lives, I mean, we've got a lot of rumors of where Toronto FC might play next season. How weird would it be if, we've got the Raptors already down in Florida? Hey, we might have the Jays in Dunedin. Toronto FC might be in Tampa as well. How weird would it be seeing all of Toronto's teams, barring the Maple Leafs, in Florida this year?
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering if I need to move. Like, do I what's happening there? The thing is, don't really want to move to Tampa because their COVID numbers are scary.
Plus, it's Tampa, but
yeah, right. So, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be like White Claws after the game, that wouldn't be the case anymore. So you'd be in your hotel, trying to hide from the rest of the world. But yeah, it's weird, right? It makes sense. MLS, all of those clubs are close, and obviously the Jays are already there. So, and I really do think that having spoken with people at the Raptors and people at the Jays and also TFC, that they've all sort of used their resources and tried to help each other out about what's working here. And it seems that they settled on Florida, which seems like a very weird place to settle on in a lot of ways. But it's wild. It would be wild to see. And also I would be afraid that Tampa would just try and like keep them forever, which can't.
There it is, guys.
Important.
Yeah. Somebody asked on the thread, is there a brass bonanza alike in Tampa, that we can steal? And I said, bad soccer and insolvency. Those are the first two things that come to my head.
I hope for the sake of...
I've spent a lot of time in Tampa in the last couple of years covering Jays or near Tampa. It's warm. That's nice.
I was gonna say you got to spend that at Tropicana, so I don't know how I do.
Well, yeah, that's fair. But the Jays complex, Dunedin's really nice. If we could all just crowd in Dunedin, then it would be lovely.
Is it grass? Can you play soccer on it, or is it not? Is it City Field?
Play in the outfield at one of the Blue Jays complexes. We'll just pull in the FC and call it a day.
Yeah. There you go.
They revamped those this year. I'm sure it has a soccer field there.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you could just walk across from one to the other? You could be watching TFC in this corner and Jays in this corner. That'd be great for me. I would love that.
I like this idea. Can it not be Tampa, though? Can it not be Tampa? The only thing I don't like is the Tampa part. Everything else is amazing. But.
Yeah. They all live in bubbles, right? So if we can just sort of find a way to permeate that bubble, then it wouldn't be so bad, right? You'd be in your own little Toronto and Tampa bubble.
Yeah, definitely.
Laura's utopia right here.
I'm finding out a way to make this pandemic work for me.
Yes.
Well, I think we all hope they don't replace Brass Bonanza with some kind of Pitbull song, but we'll let you go, Laura.
My goodness.
Really appreciate you taking the time this week.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me, Laura. It's such a pleasure.
Awesome to talk to you. Be well.
Oh, we dropped her before sign off there, but no, that was a great chat. Yeah. Obviously, a lot to think about in terms of the COVID arrangements for Toronto FC and that sort of thing. But such is 2021. I guess we are now.
Such is 2021. Yeah.
So are
Raymond
James. Sorry, are we at the point where we're giving Josie the benefit of the doubt heading into 21? Have we reached that point in Toronto FC fandom where he's part of our team now, and we're hoping that we get the best out of Josie Altidore? Or are we still kind of hoping that TFC move on from him and free up that designated player spot? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, considering that one of our designated players shouts from 40 minutes ago isn't going to sell T-shirts, so he's terrible, even though I want Junior Hoylett so badly. And that the other one, we don't know how to pronounce his name, and he's not coming. I think we're good with one open DP spot. I never gave up on Josie. Ivan just wrote in a comment, and I'm going to throw it up. Is it worrying or concerning lack of TFC roster moves / announcements, especially since training camp opens tomorrow?
Well, hold on, Ivan. Justin Morrow, we're going to get there. We're getting there, but you beat us to it. But let's take a moment here and let's welcome back Justin Morrow to Toronto FC, as Steve Buffery is reporting that Justin Morrow and TFC are come into terms, and he'll be back with TFC next season, which of course is music to our ears if anybody's watched this show. And when Justin Morrow came on, he said that was the plan. So we shouldn't. I
tuned out after the Onyx heartbreak, but whatever.
We shouldn't be surprised. What do you guys make of the Justin Morrow move back to TFC?
Well, I want to sort of circle back to Ivan's thing. I mean, in normal times, yeah, sure, it's alarming. We're going to be alarmed because we need to speculate on TFC roster moves. But the way that everything's shaped up, I'm not too alarmed. I mean, at the end of the season, we were talking about how we're not going through a rebuild. We're a couple pieces away. We lost a lone player. We lost some dead weight. And all we have to do is look to the bottom of our screen to the biggest advocate of the young guns, who's probably as happy as can be right now, because it opens the floodgates to promoting in terms of the inside. Junior Hoylett, Tam Gam. I don't care if he's a DP, guys. I'm willing. People always bring up Victor Vasquez as an excuse why we should get people on TAM. You need to stop it. He was the greatest deal in the history of the league. He should have been a DP. He was never a TAM player. So it's such an unfair comparison.
I don't think the Vasquez is the comparison. I think it's the DPs that Toronto FC's brought in between Bradley, Altidore, Pozuelo, Giovinco. That's where your standard's set now. And again, I don't think that it's Hoylett the player. I just think it's I don't think that he's not going to sell T-shirts. Like, that's why you shouldn't bring him in. It's less like I meant like selling the fan base on him in the sense of you're getting rid of a La Liga winger and bringing in a championship winger. On face value, it's a lateral move
for sure. That the bar
who's Canadian, who's Torontonian, and who rules.
They've been there, done that with Julian de Guzman. Like, we're over that stage where just because he's Canadian, just because he's foreigner, we have to bring him home. I mean, I agree with Mitch. It's just he doesn't really move the needle if you compare him to a Pablo Piatti. He could score a little bit more goals, but is he a better player overall?
Yes.
That's definitely debatable. But yeah, I would love to see him here as an allocation money.
Yeah, and on the Josie story, I never give up on Josie. I mean, I ran out of the opportunity to say this when Laura was on, but while Josie was scoring goals, the only thing Seba was kicking in anger was a stanchion beside the tunnel to the.
Hey, he kicked that. To be fair, he kicked that after scoring 2 goals and getting pulled off after getting a hat trick. So that's a bad example.
Yes, Junior Hoylett.
But yeah, no, circling back, let's circle back to Ivan's comment there about TFC not really announcing any moves. I think this week and next week we are going to hear some moves come in, just because training camp is opening, and that time is coming where they have to start making moves and announce these decisions. So I think we'll hear a Justin Morrow decision. I think we might hear 1 or 2 more potentially, but like Mitch said, this is a team that's happy with the consistency. Or Jeff, you said that this is a team that's happy with what it has. I
want to circle back to one thing, because it reminded me. If considering that we've got a new coach, and considering that if we don't get Bore Hoylett in the winter transfer window, and they'll be coming in a couple steps behind whatever Chris Armas is trying to do. Is that a concern to you, or do you think that's a positive? Like, Chris Armas gets to figure it out with Josie maybe, and then come summertime, we have a much firmer idea of where everybody stands.
I think good players adapt. I mean, we saw Pozuelo come in, what he did in his first game. Same with Altidore and Javinko. Like, they all hit the ground running. Like, I think most of the time, good players, when you bring them in, it's not too hard to build around them. So I'm not too concerned in that. And on the note, I think Michael was kind of getting here maybe. Again, we found out that when the season starts, like this past week, there's been so much chaos in all of this. And sure, I could eat these words, but with where Toronto FC's at in terms of a roster right now, I'm not too concerned that come the summer transfer window, they wouldn't be at least in a playoff spot and
Agreed.
Probably Canadian champions. So,
Agreed. What did they lose? They lost.
I could be heavily eating these words, but
we'll wait for the coin toss.
They lost. Who'd they lose? They lost Lawrence Simon, Eric Zavaleta, who are their backup center backs, and we know the reputation they had around TFC Live. They lost Tony G. They lost Pablo Piatti. Is there anyone else I'm missing?
Some loans of the lower depth pieces, right? Yeah, like guys we won't get back at the start of the season.
Oh, just Rocco Romeo. Just Rocco Romeo. So, if those are the subtractions from this roster, you got to consider that this team was definitely a contending team last year. They were first place for the Supporters' Shield for the majority of the season, and they're also a younger team that's probably going to improve next season, because I mean they have a mixture of youngsters and veterans, but for the most part, their majority of their players are younger players. You can look at the Altidores and Bradleys, but maybe that just means they have to take a lesser role next season because they're getting a little bit older, and that means that you have players capable that are stepping up, like a Liam Fraser, a Ralph Priso, or a Noble Okello. Like the sky's the limit.
Noble Okello, I need to see that. I need to see some of that, man.
There's so much untapped potential in Toronto FC right now. So I think the biggest question mark on this roster heading into training camp right now is that center back position. I think this team can start the season without a designated player and be fine, but I'm not sure they can do it without a third center back right now. I don't know if Julian Dunn is that answer. The only time he's proven that he can hang around in MLS is at the Canadian Premier League's Island Games, right? That's the only time he's really showcased that he's up there.
Boy, was he up there. He was a revelation.
Yeah, he was very good, and perhaps that's why TFC have felt they don't need to rush into getting another center back here. But if you're going into the season as Julian Dunn as your third center back and you don't have a natural fourth center back on the roster, that's an issue. So I'm expecting TFC to address that. And hopefully maybe it's with that under 22 player initiative, because I keep mentioning it because it's something that TFC
super exciting,
really take advantage of, especially for a team that's not financially burdened, right? They have financial freedom, and compared to other MLS teams, and if salary transfer fees isn't included in their salary cap, so you could pay whatever for a certain type of player as long as you pay them less than $500,000-$600,000 a season, then there's an opportunity for a club like TFC to spend and possibly get those players. So something to look out for and see how TFC manages that rule, because they could get even better, which is a scary sight.
Are we okay with potentially waiting to make any big roster moves to see what we got? To see if Julian Dunn can hang with the big boys, to see if Io is actually as good as his numbers suggest, to see if Josie's coming back with a big chip on his shoulder, et cetera, further down the line?
I think Mitch answered that. Yeah, I think we have a squad here that's capable of being a playoff squad in the Eastern Conference. So, and that's like the floor with this team, you know what I mean? So if they're even better than that, if Priso takes another step up, if Jaden Nelson takes another step up, Io Akinola takes another step up, if Jordan Perusa plays a role, if all these guys that are options on this team to step up and have a big year do that, then TFC.
Man, I forgot about Jordan Perusa. I forgot about that guy. We're okay. And Patrick Mullins. Let's not forget my boy Patrick Mullins. All right.
Well, and Achara. They technically have two players who you can almost consider off-season additions in Achara and Jordan Perusa. So.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really
good play, guys. Let's do this. Let's get on the pitch. Ivan, no. Both of those shouts are terrible, especially Michael Bradley at center back again. I don't ever want to see that again.
Vanny did say last year that if he got into a pickle, Liam Fraser was capable of filling in at center back. He was quick to say that.
KJ discounted it almost entirely out of hand on his IG Live, his recent IG Live.
That Liam Fraser would be an option there.
Mm-hmm. He said no way. You know,
I don't know, but it was Vanny's words himself. Like last year, I think I asked him about if he was comfortable with their center back depth, and that was when they had Simon Zabaleta.
Yeah, I think Vanny was just like, as long as he's furthest away from the bench, so I don't have to see him play him as a center back. Is he good in goal? I mean,
it was unprompted too. So like,
it's
not even like I asked him about Liam Fraser. He just randomly threw him. He's like, if things get a little tight here, it's possible that Liam Fraser could even fill in the slot.
I'd rather see Fraser at center back than Bradley at center back ever again. That gives me hives. The thought of it gives me hives. So.
What I will say is Fraser has played one game as a center back, and he was in the MLS Team of the Week. So very, very small Achara size sample size, but it's a very good one.
He's played that role for Canada too, I think, in the past, where he's dropped in at center back. And
sort of, yeah. I mean, late last season, like we saw him even in the Nashville game, he was basically playing as a center back when late in games, and they just needed him to pump balls forward when they were trying to get back in that game. So I don't know.
Last resort option.
Yeah.
So like if TFC are absolutely stranded there, perhaps they can throw Liam Fraser. And Jeff, maybe that's a reason why they don't have to rush out and get a center back right now.
Don't tell me Bradley is center back. Oh my God, I don't. No.
Again, it might be better to wait for that summer transfer window because the TFC are tight against the cap, and if someone comes in, it'll only be half their salary budget hit against the cap. Mm-hmm. So I'm surprised more teams don't take advantage of that. To be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot to ponder, a lot to think about it this week ahead. As Michael said, I have a feeling we're going to be talking some headlines next week on some of these things. So hopefully the speculation ends now. But hey, it's been fun speculating, and I've really enjoyed doing that with you guys this week. Awesome to have Laura on as well to talk some of that. And obviously, she believes Cup starts Thursday, I believe, against the United States. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun to watch those games. And again, some exciting stuff to watch for in terms of some names that maybe we haven't seen pull on the red and white before, who I think could be destined for big things over the next couple of years. So, that's going to be great. And, on behalf of Jeff, Michael, and myself, have a great week. Hopefully enjoy the snow a little bit and enjoy some Champions League as well. Until next Tuesday.
Ciao.